You are listening to the CittaCalcioUsa show, the only news and podcast in English about AS Cittadella. Hello everyone, welcome back to the CittaCalcioUsa show, episode number 146, coming to you on Friday, November 1st. Happy November, happy Friday to all. Cittadella getting ready for another tough road game, this time against Palermo at the Stadio Renzo Barbera. But the last time we've talked, Cittadella actually played not one but two games. One on the weekend, last weekend against Carrarese, finishing in a 3-0 defeat, and most recently on the weekday, on Wednesday, against Sampdoria at home, finishing in a goalless draw. We have a lot to talk about in this podcast. One defeat that was bad and one performance that was okay. So we're really a tale of two sides, two games really, in the span of a week. And also, as always, we'll get you ready for this upcoming game against Palermo on Sunday. Now, before we start, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at CittaCalcioUsa and visit our website at CittaCalcioUsa.com for more information, news articles, all that stuff. You could find it at CittaCalcioUsa.com. Now, so it's been a little bit over a week since the last podcast with Enrico Leo. Once again, a big thank you to him for coming onto the show. It was great having him on. And unfortunately for Cittadella, the game that we were predicting, we were having high hopes of against Carrarese after a good showing, not a great showing, but a good showing against Cosenza on Alessandro Del Canto's debut. He did not have a good homecoming against Carrarese that ended up in a 3-0 defeat for Cittadella as they got their butts kicked in Carrara. Not a game to remember for Cittadella. That is now back-to-back road trips, giving up 9 goals and scoring only 1 in that game. A lot has changed in this past week because, they got the Samp game under their belt, so it's kind of changed a lot of perceptions. And it's always hard to do one podcast in a week with 2 games, so bear with me a little bit. But, going back to that Carrarese game, it started off okay. First 15 minutes, I thought Cittadella were playing decently. They had a lot of possession. They were really pinning Carrarese inside their own half. And then Leonardo Cerri, who scored in the 13th minute, headed it in, and I thought Elan Castrati could have done much better there. And then Castrati was on fault on the second goal, coming off his line for really no reason and kicking the ball straight to Cerri, who had a brace after 27 minutes. 10 minutes later, Carrarese made it 3-0, and that was really the game. Cittadella, just after that first goal by Cerri, really their heads just dropped, and after a decent, promising 15 minutes that maybe they could get a point there, or at least a point, maybe even a win. It just seemed like they never really recovered, and I think that's what me and Enrico were talking about in the last podcast, is just there seems to be a mental block in this Cittadella team for whatever reason in the year of 2024. And that dates all the way back to the Sampdoria game, all the way back in January, where that kind of started this really rotten patch for the Granata ever since that game on January 28th, if I recall the exact date. But there was a lot of fear going into the Sampdoria game on Wednesday, just given off of a game. We were talking about the Cosenza and Carrarese match needing at least 4 points. Cittadella only got 1 point in that. And there was a lot of fear going into the Sampdoria game. Cittadella were in the relegation zone. They still are, but there was a real genuine possibility that, this could be a really, angry moment for Cittadella supporters, especially, in front of their home fans. But there was another side to it. Just given that it is against Sampdoria, it's against one of the bigger clubs in Serie B, maybe that gets the team fired up more. And it certainly did so because it was a much better performance. The attitude was much better from what you could tell in both the first and second half. They kept Massimo Coda quiet, and that's a thing I wanted to bring in. And that was another fear that going into the game. It was around Halloween. The spooky season had really begun, and Massimo Coda, if you don't recall, is one of the great enemies of Cittadella, as he scored 10 goals in his career against Cittadella. That is the most against in a single club in his career, tied alongside Reggiana with 10 goals and 1 assist. So they had not only Coda there, but Tutino there, and also coming off the bench, Pedrola, who is a Barcelona academy product. So they had a lot of quality, Sampdoria, and going into the game 7th place, there was a lot of expectations there. And I will say that Cittadella probably maybe deserved to win that. I still say the offensively they were still struggling a little bit. There was still not much going up on top, not a lot of huge opportunities. Probably the biggest chance came in the second half with Andrea Tessiore pulling a shot wide after a giveaway in the back by Sampdoria. However, other than that, there was not really much going. On the other side, they didn't allow Sampdoria much going forward. I think Coda only had 2 touches in Cittadella's penalty area, which is really good when you limit him to that. But another thing that I noticed in this game was the change of formation from Alessandro Dal Canto. He switched to a 3-5-2, something that had been done in the past, and that's kind of what he mentioned in his post-match conference, that the 3-5-2 was something that Guarini had been playing with for a little bit and had experimented for a little. And so Dal Canto wanted to give it a try just because he said that, nothing is really new for this team. They know this system. It's nothing really, there's no curveballs being thrown here. So a 3-5-2 in that Simone Tronkin getting his first start as a Cittadella player since signing from Vicenza in June. I thought he played good. He played kind of as a regista role, as a number 6 deep line playmaker, kind of right in front of the center backs. And, he played, I say, a good game. Let me pull up the lineup. Yes, that is now, as I look at the results, 3 straight games without a goal for Cittadella. But the Google lineup I'm looking at right now is completely wrong. It wasn't a 5 in the back. If I recall correctly, man, I'm going to have to rethink this lineup. But, Ellen Castrati in goal. You got Salvi. It was Salvi on the right. But the 3 in the back were Carrarese, Pavan, and what was it? I believe it was... Yeah, I think it was Salvi in the back as well. Then on the right, you had Vita. On the left, you had Massangelo pushing up higher. Then the kind of 2 box-to-box midfielders were Branca, Amatucci, Tronkin laying in the number 6 role. And then up top, you had the 2 strikers, Rabi and Magrassi. Rabi, who was playing on his birthday, by the way. So happy late birthday to him. And throughout the game, it was kind of switching to a 3-1-4-2. What I saw in possession was, Tronkin was kind of the only deep line center mid, and the rest with Amatucci, Branca, and all those others were kind of in front of him. Really a lot of wide play in this game. Massangelo got the ball a lot. Vita got on the ball. Salvi on the ball on the sides of the field. And, a lot of good possession, a lot of good spells of game for Cittadella. And like I said, probably the best chance came when Tessiore pulled the shot wide. But really, I think defensively they played solid. They didn't allow Sampdoria any real good opportunities. I will say, if they play with this same mentality, energy, and just attitude, they will get the points will come, and that win, that long-awaited home win, will eventually come for Cittadella. Another thing I want to add about this game also was first 15 minutes. I think was the best time to score in the second half for Cittadella. In the first, after halftime, they had really all the momentum, but still couldn't get that thing through. And that's just kind of the common theme in this season for Cittadella, is just the attacking third play has just not been good enough. And like I just said, that's now 3 straight games without a goal. The worst attack in Serie B with, 5 goals, but really it should be 6 goals if you include the Pisa game that was reversed on the Tavolino, a 3-0 result for Pisa. But looking elsewhere, you had, another 0-0 draw. That's now the second straight 0-0 draw at home. And that is now 13 games without a home win for Cittadella, dating all the way back to January. So the tension is still high. And one last thing I kind of want to add about the Sampdoria game. I know I'm kind of jumping all around the place, but I have like a lot of notes here. And I want to get this podcast out as soon as possible so there's enough time to listen to it before Sunday's match against Palermo. But one thing I will say is kind of similar to the home record, home troubles for Cittadella, is Tessiore had a chance in this game, 1v1. Eliseo Vita had a chance against Cosenza 2 weeks ago. Very similar plays, 1v1 chances. It's just really, I think it really comes down to mentality, because I feel like the Cittadella players, the coaches, are really holding this really big thing on their back of not having a home win since January. That's 13 games. I feel like every time this happens, just more pressure and anxiety builds up. And until they get that home win, it's just going to keep on continuing like this. And, I think earlier in 2023, in the first half of last season, Vita and Tessiore buries those chances. I think definitely they convert those chances and Cittadella gets those 2 wins at home. But just given how things are going right now, just that every little thing is it seems like it's not working in Cittadella's favor. And that's what happens when, you're struggling. That's what happens when you're just in a relegation fight in a really difficult time. Only 4 wins in 2024. And that's just the things just don't start to go in your favor. I don't know what is needed. I think just a little bit of luck is needed for Cittadella. I think if they had got that goal not reversed by VAR against Cosenza, I think it's 2 very different games against Carrarese and Sampdoria. However, just another back step in this, and VAR overturns that, and Cittadella are still without a home win. That's kind of like, what I wanted to touch upon. That's what I just noticed. I think Enrico really put it spot on, is Cittadella probably are better off playing away from home just to relieve some tension, relieve some pressure from getting that long-awaited home win. And considering they're playing Palermo next, another one of the bigger clubs, maybe playing up to them is probably a good thing, and what Cittadella really needs right now going into these next 2 games before the November international break. But before we get into this Palermo match coming up on Sunday, November 3rd, I want to read you some standings. I recorded with Elia, the Italian guy, Speaking Serie B, episode 12, so go check that out, please, on our channel, CittaCalcioUSA.com and CittaCalcioUSA show on YouTube. We kind of went over the results already, but, match day 11, there was 9 draws. I don't think that's ever happened before. 9 out of the 10 results ended in draws. So not much movement in the table besides Cosenza beating Reggiana, which they do jump over Cittadella in 18th place, and Cittadella goes to 19th. The match day before, so the match day where Cittadella lost to Carrarese, some decent results there. Nothing much that stands out too much. You got probably the biggest shock was Pisa drawing away against Frosinone. Frosinone, the first game since sacking Viverini, and really struggling at the moment. They were playing down a man for 85 minutes in that game, and they still ended up getting a draw against the league leaders. So Pisa is still in first place with 24 points. Sassuolo actually jumped them because Spezia drew 2 games in a row. So it's now in second place, Sassuolo, 22 points. Third, Spezia with 21. And then they have a 3-point gap between them and fourth place, Cremonese in 18th. And then fifth place, Palermo, 16th points. That is Cittadella's next opponent. And towards the bottom of the standings in the relegation zones, you got 16th Salernitana, 12 points. 17th Modena, 11 points. 18th Cosenza, 10 points. You got Cittadella with 9 points. And then last place still Frosinone with 8 points. Now, let's get into this Palermo match coming real quickly on Sunday, November 3rd. It's a 3 p.m. European time and 9 a.m. Eastern time here in the United States. Don't forget that Sunday night here in the United States, we do turn back the clocks for daylight savings. So just it's not at 10 a.m. Eastern, it's at 9 a.m. So just don't forget about that. But kind of like what I said earlier, I think Cittadella is better off playing away from home. It's quite a long away trip. It's probably their longest away trip of the season. They're definitely going to be flying there. So it's only an hour flight, so it can't make that much of a difference, right? Those are famous last words. But anyway, yeah, that's, I think, kind of what I already just said. Cittadella playing better away from home, getting away from that crowd pressure at the Tombolato, and really trying to get a really important win in this. I know I keep saying, important win or important game, but if they could get, at least a result in this, which I think they can, if they play with the same energy and attitude as the game against Sampdoria, they could definitely get something from this. Now, Palermo still trying to find their full stride. They beat Reggiana at home 2-0 last weekend, and then they drew on the road against Mantova 0-0. So they are also coming from a 0-0 game. But if you recall last season, Cittadella beat Palermo twice. So there's really no reason why this team can't go to the Renzo Barbera and get another result. And in recent years, you could say that Cittadella has had Palermo's number. I'll read you the history right now, but Palermo, 12 games played against them, 3 wins for Cittadella all time. Those 2 wins coming last time out, and Cittadella getting their first win against Palermo at the Tombolato last season in January. Obviously, that was the last home win from Cittadella, and we are now entering November. So it's been a very, very long time. But if you remember last season at the Renzo Barbera, also around this time on November 12th of 2023, Luca Pandolfi scoring in the 97th minute to get a 1-0 win, a famous win for Cittadella, one that they'll remember forever. And that really was the start of a really good patch for Cittadella before it all came crashing down to earth in the winter and spring of this year. But in the previous season, 2 draws, 1-3 draw at the Tombolato. Then you got a 0-0 draw, then another 2-2 draw. And their last defeat coming against Palermo was at the end of 2018. So that is 5 games undefeated against Palermo. It's definitely, they could definitely do this. And they've definitely shown that in big stadiums, in these quote-unquote big matches against the big teams, they've done really good damage. If you recall last season, not only that they got the win at Renzo Barbera against Palermo, they also beat Sampdoria at the Marassi. The year before that, they were unafraid of beating Genoa at the Marassi too. So 2 wins in Genova from Cittadella. That's something not to be overlooked. And a lot of those players that played in those matches still plays for the team now. So I don't think the intimidation from the big stadium and the big public is not gonna affect this team, because I think a lot of these core players have played already in these big stadiums against these big teams, so they're quite used to it. I think this really really favors Cittadella. Not only that they're playing away, it's just they're playing against a Palermo team that are expected to be fighting for promotion, fighting for the top two, and they really got to start pulling wins together because they don't want Pisa and Sassuolo and Spezia to start pulling away. And because Palermo 5th place with 16 points, they are currently, if I can do math correctly, that is why can't I do math correctly right now? 6 points adrift from second place Sassuolo in the direct promotion spots, which is definitely where Palermo is aiming for this season. So against a tough opponent like Palermo, against one of these bigger clubs in Serie B, I think this really favors Cittadella kind of as a nothing to lose type of attitude. It really is, obviously they are really in need of a win right now, but I think a draw would definitely go a long way in just keeping the morale of the team. The attitude is going to be really, really important in this match. And I think 100% that this team can do it. Will they do it? I don't know. There could be really two situations to this game. One could either be they show the type of spirit and attitude they have against Sampdoria and grind out a 0-0 or 1-1 draw, or they show the attitude that they had in the last two road trips against Carrarese and against Sassuolo, losing a combined score of 9-1 and just really collapse and really not put a good showing before the last game, before the international break against Cesena at home. So it's definitely a very interesting dynamic going into this game. Once again, I think this favors Cittadella a lot, and we'll see what happens going into this game. One more thing I want to say is I do expect Dal Canto to keep the 3-5-2 formation. I think that worked really well against Sampdoria. And let's see what Dal Canto says, because he will be speaking to the media tomorrow before Cittadella travels down to Sicily for their game. And with that, I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover. I've talked about the two past games against Reggiana. I don't know why I said not Reggiana. Please excuse me. It's been a long day. Not against Reggiana, against Carrarese and Sampdoria. Cittadella losing one, drawing one, and getting ready for a Sunday afternoon showdown in Sicily at the Stadio Renzo Barbera against Palermo. Sunday, November 3rd. That is a 3 p.m. European time and 9 a.m. Eastern time here in the United States. With that, I'm going to end it here. Thank you for listening. Please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, CittaCalcioUsa, and our website, CittaCalcioUsa.com, for more information, news, articles, all that stuff about AS Cittadella. That's it for me. I will see you next week recapping this game. And, as always, Forza Citta. Thank you for listening to the CittaCalcioUsa show. If you liked it, please share and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at CittaCalcioUsa. See you next time, and remember, Forza Citta.